Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be exploring some really powerful ideas from Ralph Waldo Emerson. We're pulling these directly from a collection of his essays you shared with us.
And it's really worth remembering where these came from. A lot of these weren't just written down in isolation. They started as talks, as lectures.
Right.
Like the American Scholar. He gave that talk back in 1837, Phi Beta Kappa Society at Cambridge. And it wasn't just, academic talk. It was a real call to arms for America to find its own intellectual voice.
Yeah, separate from Europe. So, okay, our mission here is to unpack these thoughts, see what they tell us about, well, the individual, society, reality itself, and maybe most importantly, why they might still matter to you today.
Definitely still relevant.
Okay, let's start with the American Scholar. Emerson lays out these key influences on, well, the thinking person, the scholar. He boils it down to three things: nature, the mind of the past, mostly books, and action.
Right. And nature, for him, it's foundational. It's all connected, coming from one single root, as he puts it. Nature isn't just pretty scenery. It's a teacher. It reveals itself to the mind.
So it helps us classify things, see connections.
Exactly. He even says the scholar and nature, they come from the same root. It's this deeply interconnected view as everything.
Okay, so nature's like the first text. Then there's the mind of the past in books. Now, he values books, obviously, but he's also pretty critical, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely critical. He says they're the best things, used well, but potentially the worst if abused. Their real job, their only job, he argues, is to inspire.
Just to spark our own thoughts, not to just follow them.
Precisely, to spark thinking, not trap it. And he warns about this grave mischief, which is when we start treating the book, the record, as more sacred than the actual act of creation, the thought itself, the book becomes perfect, and it just freezes us.
Right, because genius, he says, looks forward. But institutions often look back, using those old texts.
Exactly. And he makes this, well, pretty bold statement: better to never even see a book than let it pull you out of your own orbit.
Making you a satellite instead of your own system.
That's the image. Yeah. So reading isn't passive for him at all. You need a strong head, he says, to handle all that input. You've got to be an inventor when you read.
Creative reading. I like that. You're making meaning, not just taking it in.
You got it. Then there's the third piece: action, experience. Emerson feels the scholar loses power, loses insight every time they pass up a chance for real action.
Even the hard stuff, like failure, drudgery, frustration.
Especially the hard stuff. He calls them instructors. They teach you things like eloquence and wisdom that you just can't get from abstract thought alone.
So experience is the raw material.
Yes, that the intellect then works on. Life is our dictionary, he says. All those everyday things, working in the country, living in town, trades, science, art, that's where wisdom comes from. It's about engaging, not hiding away.
Okay, so those are the influences. Yeah. But the path itself, being that kind of independent thinker, Emerson admits it's not easy. He talks about the challenges.
Yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat it. Finding your voice, maybe facing poverty, being alone, getting criticized, and choosing your own way, he says that brings its own struggles: self-doubt, fear, uncertainty. It's a cross you bear.
But the payoff is huge, right?
Yeah.
He says people actually respond, they delight when someone speaks authentically from their core, that feeling of, this is my music, this is myself.
Exactly. And that self-trust, it's everything for Emerson. It's the foundation for all virtues. The scholar needs to be free from anything that isn't part of their own nature and brave. And fear, he thinks fear just comes from ignorance.
Right. Knowledge gives you courage.
And this leads to his really expansive view of human potential. He says the world is actually plastic and fluid.
Malleable.
Yeah, malleable to the divine qualities a person brings. The real kings of the world, for him, are the ones who can actually alter my state of mind.
Wow. He really believed in this shared potential, didn't he? This idea that man is one, but we've kind of lost touch with that light.
He did. And he could be harsh about it, calling people bugs or spawn or the mass when they fall short of that potential.
Ouch. But then the hero or the poet, they show what's possible, the ripened potential in everyone.
Yes, exactly. They're examples, he says. The main enterprise of the world is the upbuilding of a man. Even just a private life, lived authentically, can be like an illustrious monarchy.
And he wasn't just looking back. He looked at his own time, saw the complaining literary types, and kind of dismissed it.
Right. Said they were just regretting an untried future. He insisted his time, like any time, is a very good one if we but know what to do with it. The potential's always there if you look for it.
In art, science, even politics.
Yeah, auspicious signs everywhere. And he pushes back against looking only to the past or far away for wisdom. Things near, he says, are just as amazing.
The familiar explains the unfamiliar. A drop is a small ocean.
Beautifully put. And he finds value in the vulgar, the common, the everyday, like Goethe showing the genius in ancient, simple lives.
So this whole essay builds towards this call for American intellectual independence.
It really does. He feels America has listened to Europe for too long, making Americans seem timid, derivative.
And the real failure, the disgrace, isn't being poor or criticized, but failing to be your own unique self, just getting lost in the crowd in a party or group.
Which leads to that famous, powerful line. The solution is, we will walk on our own feet, we will work with our own hands, we will speak our own minds.
A declaration of individual independence.
Absolutely.
And that idea, walking on your own feet, links right into another huge Emerson theme, compensation. He thought life itself teaches us this better than any theology.
He really did. He saw the proof everywhere, in daily life, tools, trade, the way things just work. It wasn't abstract. It was a ray of divinity in the fabric of reality.
And the basic idea is balance.
Balance, universal balance. He points out all the dualities in nature, spirit matter, man, woman, ebb flow. Everything reflects this balancing act.
And this balance isn't passive, right? It actively corrects things.
Yeah, reaction follows action. The overbearing get brought down, maybe not by force, but by the internal results of their actions, like a fierce person softened by love for their kids.
He also says something interesting about new insights, that new light brings new danger.
Right. Seeing a truth compels you to live it. You have to bear witness. And that might mean shedding approval, going against the grain, maybe even challenging relationships that hate father and mother idea, prioritizing soul truth.
And this justice, this balancing, it's not something we wait for. It's happening right now.
Exactly, not postponed. The dice of God are always loaded. That's such a vivid image. The universe balances itself like math. Secrets come out, crimes have costs, virtue gets rewarded, wrongs are righted. Silently, certainly.
So every action contains its own reward or consequence. It happens in the situation itself, but also in the person acting.
Yes. The effect blooms right out of the cause. You can't really separate them.
And trying to cheat that. Trying to get pleasure without the moral side.
He sees that as basically blinding yourself. A penal blindness falls on people who chase desires without grounding.
He finds this truth in old wisdom too, right? Fables, proverbs.
Yeah, calls them the literature of reason. They state these absolute truths simply. Even if you act for a small reason, the act itself gets caught up in this larger law.
And we judge ourselves constantly through our actions and words.
We can't help it. He says you draw your own portrait with everything you do or say. Your opinions bounce back at you, like a harpoon returning.
Which leads to that really challenging idea. You can't really suffer wrong unless you've somehow done wrong or are wrong internally.
It's a tough one. But yeah, pride hurts the proud person. Excluding others cuts you off. Treating people like objects diminishes you. You lose your own heart if you ignore theirs.
And there's a tax on benefit. You can't just receive without giving back.
Right. Better to pay as you go, he advises. Don't get loaded down with prosperity you haven't earned or balanced out. Receiving without giving back is pretty base in his view. Benefit demands return, line for line, deed for deed.
Even with work, the real reward isn't just the money.
Nope. Money and credit are just signs. The real price, the true gain from labor, is the knowledge and virtue you develop through the work. Stealing or swindling ultimately hurts the self.
Nature itself seems almost morally lined here.
You think so? It's hostile to vice, no den to hide a traitor. The natural order eventually reveals what's false.
But adversity isn't just punishment. It's also a teacher, a source of strength.
A huge teacher. He says this secret force wakes up when we're pricked and stung. Great people are willing to be humbled. They learn when they're, punished, tormented, defeated.
They gain clarity, lose their conceit.
Exactly. They gain facts, learn their own ignorance. They can even learn by trying to see the other side, the assailant's side.
Yeah.
And you get stronger by resisting temptation.
So ultimately, you can only really be cheated by yourself.
That's his bottom line. The deepest losses are self-inflicted.
But on the flip side, virtue and wisdom, they don't have a downside. No tax.
No penalty there. They're additions of being, pure gain. They expand who you are. You can't have too much love, knowledge, beauty in their true forms. It leads to this fundamental optimism in the soul.
So life is about progress, not arriving somewhere. And our instinct is trust.
Yeah, trust the process. He wouldn't want a pot of gold he didn't earn because the tax is certain, but And this is crucial. There's no tax on knowing the law of compensation exists. Understanding this is pure gain.
And those surface inequalities we see, they dissolve when you look deeper. Through love.
He thinks so. Love reveals the underlying unity. His is mine. I am my brother, and my brother is me. You gain from your neighbor's greatness by loving it. Even figures like Jesus or Shakespeare are just fragments of that universal soul we all share potential in.
And even disaster, calamity, it's seen as a signal for growth.
Advertisements of a nature whose law is growth. That's how he puts it. It pushes the soul to leave the old system, form a new one. Growth comes through these shocks if you resist gentle expansion. It's like walls falling, letting a garden flower become a huge forest tree. Adversity breaks limits.
Wow. Okay, that leads us right into maybe his most famous essay, Self-Reliance. Kicks off with, man is his own star.
And our acts, our angels are, for good or ill, they follow us.
The core message here is trust yourself, that inner light.
Trust that inner flash. Pay more attention to your own gut feelings, your spontaneous thoughts, than even the smartest people out there, the bards and sages.
And recognize your own ideas when you hear them later from someone else, those rejected thoughts.
Yes. Stick with your first impression, he says, especially if people disagree. Don't wait for someone else to validate your thought before you trust it.
Because envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide.
That's the blunt truth for him. You kill your unique potential trying to be someone else. You have to take yourself, for better or for worse, accept your lot, your place.
And relying too much on stuff, on property, makes you timid.
Yeah, afraid. Real richness comes from work, from doing, not just having or even praying without acting.
Okay, and then the big one. Consistency. A hobgoblin of little minds.
Huh. Yeah, the buzzbear of conventional thinkers. He argues that being great often means being misunderstood by people stuck in old ways. Think Socrates, Jesus, Copernicus.
Galileo.
All of them. People whose new ideas shook things up.
So you should speak your truth today, even if it contradicts yesterday.
Absolutely. Spontaneity is key. Say what you think now. Don't worry about appearing consistent for reputation's sake. The only truly right action comes from the soul. Every heart vibrates to that iron string.
Accept your place, trust your gut.
And trust your own nature. He says no law is more sacred than your own constitution. Good and bad are just names for what fits us or doesn't. What's right is what aligns with my nature.
But it's hard to do that in a crowd, right?
That's the challenge. Easy to follow the crowd, easy to be yourself alone. The great person keeps that independence of solitude while in the crowd.
Because conformity just scatters your energy, makes you blurry.
Wastes time, blurs character, like wearing a prison uniform, he says. You lose what makes you you. And the crowd's discontent often just follows the wind or the latest news. We need nonconformity based on principle.
It comes down to respecting yourself. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind.
And if you can resolve yourself to yourself, be true to that inner voice, you'll eventually gain the world's respect, its suffrage.
He even redefines prayer along these lines.
Yeah, true prayer isn't asking for stuff like miracles, that's mean and sick. It's contemplating life from the highest view, aligning with truth. God's spirit is with the authentic worker in this kind of prayer.
And true goodness isn't just putting on a Sunday face.
Exactly. It's an essence, living from your own idea, not just following rules.
He's famously skeptical about travel too, isn't he? Calls it a superstition.
He does. Says the people who made places great often stayed put and developed their inner world. Your duty, your work, is right where you are. The wise person stays home, but because their center is internal, they're kind of at home everywhere. A missionary of thought.
But he's also wary of too much association, losing yourself in groups.
Yeah, need to go alone, spiritually speaking. Maintain independence. Avoid getting swamped by emphatic trifles. You know, the urgent but unimportant stuff. He has that line, I cannot break myself any longer for you.
Wow. Love me for who I am.
Basically. Trust what is deep is holy. And he believes others, in their moments of clarity, will recognize the truth you embody.
But doing this, casting off common motivations, takes real strength.
Something godlike, he says. High heart, faithful will, clear sight, a purpose strong as iron.
He sees his own society as lacking this. Timid, maybe?
Timorous, desponding, not enough great individuals, people relying on others, insolvent natures. Life and art feel mendicant, like begging, because they lack self-culture. But there's hope. Light will break into any cabin if someone is honest.
And he critiques relying too much on technology, on things.
Yeah, the coach instead of strong legs, the watch instead of reading the sun. Improving machinery is fine, but it doesn't automatically make people stronger or more insightful. The man is the point. Always.
Because the real power is inside. We feel weak looking outside.
That's it. Power is inborn. God, or the divine energy, flows to you when you're doing your authentic work. This inner power cancels out external differences, age, sex, whatever. People living like this are great events. You can even share in a friend's success, feel pride, hear their thoughts as fresh and powerful.
Okay, that's a good bridge to friendship. He calls it almost too good to be believed.
Like immortality, yeah. He's quite idealistic, even suggesting the perfect friend might not actually exist.
But why do we seek friends then? He says it's for grander self-acquaintance or solitude.
It's a bit paradoxical, isn't it?
Yeah.
You need to be able to be alone to truly value and engage in society. But he's realistic, too. Actual friendships, actual society can be a perpetual disappointment. Missed connections, apathy. That's why solitude can feel like a relief sometimes.
And equality is key in friendship.
Absolutely essential. You have to meet as equals, can't use friends as an escape, an asylum.
He also mentions the number of friends, suggesting true depth is maybe just between two.
Yeah, he notes that idea. Says real conversation needs that one-to-one focus, that running of two souls into one.
And solitude helps prepare you for good conversation.
Right. You get warmed up by company, but you need solitude to sort out your own thoughts, to regain his tongue, so you have something genuine to offer.
Finding the right friend requires a balance, right? Likeness and unlikeness.
A rare mean, he calls it. You need connection and challenge, someone who piques you. Too much agreement is boring. Too much opposition is draining. Your friend has to be fully themselves.
And the joy is finding the shared humanity, the not mine that becomes mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he hates, absolutely hates that mush of concession. Better a nettle, something prickly and true, than just an echo.
And the condition for having such a friendship is being able to live without it.
That's the paradox again. It's an alliance of two large, formidable natures who respect each other deeply, maybe even fear each other a little, but recognize the identity underneath.
The beautiful enemy. That's a striking phrase.
Isn't it? Untamable, revered, not just convenient. Need some distance? Like appreciating an opal. He also notes letters can sometimes allow for more truthful expression than face-to-face chat.
But it demands self-possession from both people. Lack of integrity spoils it.
Vitiates the relation, yeah. For that deep peace, each person has to bring their whole authentic self, stand for the whole world in the dialogue.
Carry it with grandeur. Be silent to hear the gods.
And the core truth. To have a friend, you must be one. You can't force it. The soul just pulls away if it's not authentic or aligned.
And don't be afraid to make it spiritual.
No, that's the realist connection. We are fundamentally insulated. We have all in us. Seeking fulfillment only in others misses the truth at home, within.
So prioritize your own inner life, even over talking with friends, if it means losing your own vision.
It's a hard balance. You can't afford to lose yourself studying their visions. Friends can bring new perspectives, lusters, but not replace your private oracle. You owe them honest, maybe fleeting intercourse, sharing your truth, receiving theirs.
Okay, let's shift to heroism. He felt it was often missing in the literature of his day. Too soft.
Yeah, flutes, not fife. Too gentle, lacking that sharp edge. Though we did see exceptions, like Wordsworth or Carlyle.
And what is heroism for him? Not necessarily saintly.
Not conventional holiness, no. It can involve pride, extreme individuality, but we still revere it. Heroic acts just are. They don't need justification.
And it feels, never reasons, and therefore is always right. That's pretty radical.
It is. Obedience to a secret impulse and intuition. It might look unwise to others at first until they see the deeper alignment.
He contrasts it strongly with prudence, with calculating for comfort and wealth.
Totally opposed. Heroism measures itself by sacrifice, by fortitude. It kind of laughs at ordinary worries' appearance, trivial games, fancy food. Prudence, obsessed with comfort, is heroism's butt and merriment.
Generosity is key too.
A major heroic trait. Giving out of love somehow obligates the universe to return it, through compensation. The sacrifice itself is the reward. It builds connection, raises the bar for everyone. Though he adds hospitality should be selective, maybe implying a need for genuine connection.
And the core idea, virtue is enough. External stuff is secondary.
Exactly. Poverty can even be an ornament if your focus is internal. Greatness doesn't need abundance.
He also admires the hero's good humor, their hilarity.
Yeah, it shows they're above suffering, that they hold opinions, success, even life itself lightly. They wear their greatness easily, like Scipio or Socrates.
And he wants to bring this energy home, domesticate it, not leave it in the past.
Yes. Shed the superstition of special times or places. Where the heart is, there the gods sojourn. The potential is right here, right now.
He does note that some promising young people falter in real life.
Lack that generosity of dignity, he says. True greatness doesn't care about opinion in the end.
Okay, moving towards practical living with manners. He sees this desire for elegance as pretty universal.
Universal. And the creation of the gentleman as a big deal in modern history.
How does he define the gentleman? It's a mix.
A compound. Virtue, wit, beauty, wealth, power. But crucially, the true gentleman is too excellent to value conditions highly. They embody it, but aren't defined by the external stuff, like Saladin or Caesar.
And wealth. It's useful, but not the core thing.
Just a deputy. The truly greats are usually busy with their real work, not just hanging out in fashionable circles. Fashion often follows in their wake, adopted by their children or admirers.
He sees fashion and aristocracy as kind of inevitable selections.
Natural, almost. A permanent line forms based on who embodies certain admired qualities, even without laws dictating it.
But sometimes fashion gets it right. Adopt self-reliance.
Occasionally. And a truly virtuous soul is inherently elegant. Manners change, but the core laws, respect, truth, self-possession remain.
But he criticizes using manners or wealth as screens to avoid real contact.
Yeah, people dreaded nothing so much as a full rencontre front to front, a direct meeting. Screens are convenient, but block growth, real perception. We need that self-poise, that island of a man inviolate, secure inside, present but not overwhelmed, like God sitting apart.
Intellect helps in society, but shouldn't be too rigid.
Right. Quick perception is good for politeness, but don't be overly precise. Leave room for impulse, spontaneity.
And the real basis of courtesy is love.
Love, recognizing the shared humanity. Wit adds spice. He contrasts the ballroom code with true honor. People are curious about high life, showing a love for refinement, but the reality often disappoints. Artists and scholars often get in based on merit.
He even finds courtesy in nature. Flowers, fruit.
Sweet hints, gifts, yeah.
But receiving gifts,
Yeah.
he's wary of dependence.
Very wary. Not the office of a man to live by dependence. Hates relying on others for basics. Take heed from Jove's gifts. Seek the capacity within yourself. Ask the whole.
But a good person can receive well, gracefully.
Yes. Receiving well without being overly emotional about it shows inner self-sufficiency. It avoids that sense of degradation or dependency.
Okay, on to prudence. He says he writes not just from experience, but also aspiration and antagonism.
Right. What he aimed for and what he reacted against. It fuels the writing.
And prudence. It can be false if it's just self-interest, but legitimate if it aligns practical life with the soul's laws.
Exactly. The natural history of the soul incarnate, living out those deeper principles in everyday actions.
He talks about different levels of seeing wealth and health.
Yeah, basic view. They're the goal.
Yeah.
Utility, higher view. They express beauty artistic. Highest view. They're just means to human perfection. Cultivated people see them as signs of inner energy at work.
He makes that practical point about climate and labor, giving Northerners more force from engaging with nature.
An interesting observation about how necessity shapes us.
And he finds real joy in practical things. Tools, gardening, housekeeping.
Definitely. There's an optimism in the pleasure derived from everyday competence. Following any natural law brings satisfaction.
He calls for sticking to facts, trusting senses.
Yeah. Stand on your feet, call a spade, ground yourself in reality, not illusions.
But he sees a fatal dislocation in our relationship with nature. Our laws become enemies.
Which leads to the question of reform. Why are health, beauty, genius the exceptions, not the rule? Something's out of whack.
He thinks poetry and prudence, insight and practice should be connected.
Should be coincident. Poets as lawgivers. But they become separated in his time.
He has that observation about Yankee trade surviving by speed and activity.
Things in motion are safe. An interesting economic or maybe even psychological point.
And fear. Things seem scarier from far away.
Yeah, men far off threaten, but up close, often less so. Peace sometimes relies on fear, not justice.
And courtesy. Worthwhile because it recognizes our shared humanity.
Costs nothing, but reflects that underlying unity.
But he criticizes how we live in society. Not being fully honest or authentic.
Yeah, never standing on an unfriendly footing, maybe meaning truly direct. Refusing sympathy, waiting for perfection while life slips away. Living together, but afraid to be ourselves.
Okay, finally, circles.
Yeah.
Using the circle as this powerful symbol for reality and self.
Starts with the eye, the horizon. Sees it everywhere in nature, the highest emblem. Cites Augustine. God as a circle, center everywhere, circumference nowhere.
Compensation fits this too, a circular law.
Exactly. Return and balance.
And the universe isn't fixed, it's fluid,
Yeah.
dynamic.
No fixtures. Permanence is just relative. The world is transparent law. Even culture is just an idea. A new idea can dissolve the old one, like Greek sculpture melting away before a new thought.
So the key to a person is their main idea. And change comes from a new, bigger idea.
Right. Their thought classifies their reality. A new commanding idea reforms them. Life is this self-evolving circle, always expanding.
And new ideas always challenge the old.
They judge the old results. The old resists, sees only skepticism. But we adapt, see the benefit. Don't fear the new generalization, it just refines things.
It applies to ourselves too. We always feel there's more to us, an unknown part.
No fixtures to our consciousness either, that unknown residuum. Yet we want a clear path.
And real understanding, like of religion, comes from nature, not just books.
Pastures, ponds, birds, they cleanse and clarify understanding directly.
So we need to trust the incalculable, the soul's hidden power.
Yes, can't always predict how truth helps. So to be is the sole inlet of so to know. Just being authentic opens doors to knowing. A new perspective brings old powers into new light. Simple words gain huge meaning.
And we actually desire this abandonment, to forget ourselves, act spontaneously.
Yes, to be surprised, lose memory, act without knowing why. In short, to draw a new circle. Break free. Nothing great happens without enthusiasm, that surge. Life becomes wonderful by abandonment, letting go, trusting the flow.
Okay, so let's try to pull these threads together. What's the big picture emerging from all this?
Well, it really centers on the immense power and potential within the individual. That seems key.
Yeah, a deep call to trust your own inner life, your intuition, more than external authorities like books or society.
Right. And seeing everything as dynamic, flowing, nature, the self. It's not about arriving somewhere fixed, but about constant growth, always being able to, draw a new circle.
And underpinning it all is compensation, that inherent balance, where challenges aren't just roadblocks, but actually fuel for growth.
Exactly. Justice and consequence are woven into the fabric of things.
So these aren't just old ideas for scholars. They feel like, well, tools you can actually use, right? Especially now, with all the information overload and pressure to conform.
Definitely. They're tools for looking inward, trusting your own mind, finding your own ground to stand on.
They encourage you, the listener, to see the world not as static or threatening, but as full of potential, especially when you connect with that deeper self.
Yeah, it's an empowering perspective.
It really is. So you think about all this, maybe consider this final thought from Emerson. That deep desire we have to forget ourselves, to do something without knowing how or why. In short, to draw a new circle. What might it mean for you right now to trust an inner impulse and draw a new circle in your own life?